Okay, we've looked at factorising quadratics where we put stuff into brackets and then we can solve from there what value makes the bracket 0. If you can't factorise, you've got to solve quadratics either by using the quadratic formula, which looks something like this. Is at the you might have to memorise it at some point, but at the moment it's at the front of the paper. So b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, and that's taken from the general quadratic, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Alright, so you a, b and c are numbers. So there you go. Now, the clue here is the 3 significant figures. Alright, so it basically means it won't factorise very nicely, and you're going to have to do something else with it. Now, like I say, there's two ways of doing it. You can either use quadratic formula, which is a little bit tougher, quite a lot of calculations, or you could complete the square. I'm gonna show you on the first one the quadratic formula, and the second one I'm going to show you how to use completing the square. But you get the same answer using both. So, in the first one we've got a equals, well, it's 1x squared, b equals -3, and c equals -7. So putting that into the quadratic formula, I get -3 plus or minus. Now it's the plus or minus that gives you the two answers. Obviously you can't put plus minus into your calculator unless you've got a very, very fancy calculator. Alright, so you have to put one answer would be using the plus, one answer would be using the minus. So here we go. Anyway, notice I'm putting my negative numbers in brackets. -4, oh, that should be -4 times 1 times -7 all over 2 times 1. Alright, so that's me basically putting the values in. I should now be able to put that straight in my calculator, although having said that, it's probably worth simplifying it very quickly first. So -3 is +3 plus or minus. We've got 3 squared, which is 9. Now, and it's going to be plus 28, so over root 37 all over 2. So my x values are going to come from there. My square roots are a little bit long there. Okay, now be careful here. If you get a negative, what's known as discriminant, so it's if the bit under the square root is negative, it's obviously impossible. You can't square root a negative, can you? So therefore, be very careful with this. The minuses need to go in brackets purely, or the negative numbers need to go in brackets purely because your calculator might get a bit confused if you don't do that. Right, now all we do is stick that into your calculator, so you get 3 plus root 37 all over 2, which is, where are we? So I get x equals 4.54 to 3 significant figures, and if I swap the plus for a minus, I get, where is it, -1.54. There you go. So that's the first thing. Now, the clue about this, again, third form. Now that means you're going to have a square root in the answer. So here we go. I'm going to complete the square. So it's x plus 4. I halve the 8, don't I, squared, but I have an extra 4 squared that I don't really want. So we get that. We then x plus 4 all squared, tidy it up, we get -19. X plus 4 all squared equals +19. Now that has to be, this bit here has to be positive, alright, otherwise it won't square root, because now we're going to square root everything to get rid of the squares. When you square root something, you get your plus or minus, which is the same plus or minus that comes from here. Okay, and we get x equals -4 plus or minus the square root of 19. Right, and your two answers, okay, would be -4 plus root 19 and -4 minus root 19. Alright, so two different ways of doing it, both perfectly valid, but worth the same amount of marks. I'd suggest that completing the squares probably less chance of making a mistake, but there you go. Whatever is your preference.